This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, Riker kisses an infant.
Hello, welcome to Watchers of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review and critique show that's just propagating itself and it's none of your damn business. My name is Gepwin and I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host Dr. Isix.
Hi.
And this week we have, I don't even know what to say about this one. It's what we remember this one. It's a data-centric episode and those are always fun.
Yeah, data gets to be data, like more than usual.
Yeah, data gets to be data. There's other data, sub-data.
Data everywhere. More data. Get more data.
I mean, we don't get that later till a fistful of datas.
Well, we kind of do a little bit, but just parts of him, I guess. Anyway.
So this is the episode called The Offspring.
So it's a musical act that's been putting out good music since the 90s. And it's going to be, some of your favorite tunes that you're like, oh yeah, it's those guys, like Self-Esteem, and the one with a million lies and a good disguise. Hit him right between the eyes. Hit him right between the eyes, right?
Oh yeah, that was them. Oh, why don't you get a job? Yeah, I keep forgetting what in the heck the band's name is.
So, for today's episode, me and Gepwin are going to be telling about you about the episode and these various actors, and they act this thing, and they tell us every day that we gotta get some sci-fi up in this house in the worst kind of way. This is where you do the chorus bit.
No, I can't remember the chorus to that one.
I won't pay. How about you get a job?
Oh, that. I don't think I haven't heard Get a Job in ages. The kids aren't all right, I've heard.
Weirdly enough, Get a Job has been playing on one of the local radio stations semi-frequently, just like kind of out of nowhere.
See, this is the problem, is I don't have like a radio anymore, so I should be listening to radio.
Yeah, I only listen really when I'm going commuting to work and things like that, so.
This is one of those things that I was thinking about, because the times that I hear radio around are just people around the neighborhood. 90% of the time, because of the neighborhood I live in, it's like songs in Spanish that I don't know. But when it's a like English song, it is always something from the 90s or early 2000s, unfailingly. So I really don't understand when people my age talk about feeling old, because as far as I can tell, time has not progressed since I was 15.
Yeah, it's a little weird in some ways. It's like, oh yes, the 90s were this many decades ago now. Oh gosh, we're turning to skeletons suddenly. But then you're like, but it really hasn't left us in some way.
I'm still watching Star Trek. I'm still listening to Avril Lavigne. Everyone else is still listening to Avril Lavigne.
Yeah, I sometimes worry if I will become too culturally disconnected from my students, but they know who Goku is, so yeah.
I saw a little write-up where someone said that a secret shame of everyone currently working in music radio is every now and then when they talk to each other, they say, the 80s, 90s, and today. The today is doing a lot of work in that sentence. And then everyone gets quiet and doesn't talk about it.
Yep. Maybe in a couple more decades, they'll be like the 20s and the 30s and today, and then they'll feel less weird about it.
Anyway, this is the episode. Speaking of the young people.
Mm-hmm. Young kids these days.
Yeah, this is the young kids these days episode. Sort of.
Well, we'll have another one later, but yeah.
This is the one where Data has a kid.
Mm-hmm. Now he just states it in his brain and everything.
Yep. We'll have some things to say about this. There's some weird shit going on in this episode that I don't see anyone talking about.
I am curious to see what you have in mind then.
So this episode was written by Renee Escavara, I think.
Escaveria.
Wow, that's a name. I'm sorry to anyone with names. I cannot pronounce them.
Yeah, it's fine.
This was a spec script, and their first screenwriting credit. He'd later be brought back for redrafts and other script help, and then eventually hired on as a full writer. Moved on to write for DS9, and then worked on other shows, including what is that? Dark Angels and Medium. And let's see. Oh yeah, the shows 4400 and Carnival Row, which I know people like. I've never seen either of them, but people like them.
I've not seen the 4400 other than like maybe 20 minutes from one episode because a friend was, roommate was watching at the time. I have seen Carnival Row, and it is pretty good, though there is some parts of it that's like, all right, I'm a little head scratching about what's going on here in terms of character motivation. This guy is just suddenly turned into a complete jerk face, like he was kind of a jerk face a little bit, but now he's like way more so. Did he just get so affected? Or maybe we're just glossing over something. Okay.
Yeah, we've got some guest stars. They love to throw guest stars at us in these shows.
Yes.
Now we've got Haley Todd playing Lal. She was a guest on a lot of sitcoms, like All in the Family, and TV movies. Like, Who Will Love My Children, which I just had to include, because what the hell is that title?
I have no idea. Maybe a more digestible one is Lizzie McGuire, which was a TV series in the early 2000s. It's also a voice in Kim Possible.
Also an unhoused kid in the Christmas episode of Growing Pains. That sounds like a riot. Also a long-running role in the comedy series Brothers and the show Going Places. Would also be in shows like Sabrina the Teenage Witch and, as you said, Lizzie McGuire.
She was also a recurring character apparently in Murder, She Wrote. A couple different people, looks like. Huh.
They've been around.
Weird. Yep.
The only other main person I'm going to mention is Nicholas Coaster as Admiral Anthony Hathtel. He's got a lot of TV credits. He's first around in the U.S. Steel Hour before TV had proper show names.
Yeah. We talked about those ages ago because, your early, TOS, it's like, yeah, there's a bunch of people that are just showing up in these, U.S. Steel Hours.
He's very well known for playing David Warner on The Facts of Life, as well as Paul Britton on something called The Secret Storm, which I'm unfamiliar with.
They should have just gotten a regular Paul Warner for that.
Also a lot of other primetime soap operas. Our Private World, As the World Turns, etc. Got a lot of soap opera people. That's how you break into TV back then, I guess. Another
World, which ran from the 70 to 80. Huh. Quincy. He was in Quincy.
Oh, I've heard
Ted.
of that. Never seen it, but I've heard of it.
What is something he's done a little bit recently? He was in 2 episodes of Third Rock the Sun as the Chancellor Stevens there. Dead to Me, the American Crime Story. The Bay for 65 episodes? I've never heard of this show.
The way you emphasized it, I was like, the Bay. I was like, is that supposed to mean something to me?
Not really. It looks drama as a posh community by the sea. Bay City's rich and famous indulgent lifestyles with forbidden love, taboo sex, malicious lies, and never-ending scandal. So, kind of feels like another soap opera, but outside sometimes.
Okay, sure. There's 2 people who usually go uncredited that I want to mention just because I thought it was interesting. There is Leonard Crowfoot, who plays what every website calls Mannequin Lol, which I just thought was interesting because he was on the show before as the Man Candy in Angel 1.
Yep. He's back.
And I wanted to look this up because I saw his name in one of the things I was looking up, playing Mannequin Lol. And we'll get into a thing, but there's a scene where they also have a human male version of Lal who's on screen for a few seconds. So I wanted to look up whether it was the same guy, and it is not. They used a different actor again.
Yep. So I guess makes it slightly easier in terms of composite shots and things like that, but,
Only sort of.
And the other human was Andy Wiley, it looks like, and this is like the only thing he's been in. So.
Yeah. And this is also the final episode for background actor James Becker, who is known as Youngblood. And this is the first time he gets a line of dialogue as like a goodbye present.
It's like, yeah, you're not going full Cole Meany here, but we're going to give you something.
Yep.
He was at Webster previously. Wow. He was in 41 episodes, apparently, of this show, TNG, but only in one of Webster, and that was it. So.
He's just been around in the back.
Hanging out.
They all knew him and loved him.
Which I guess is kind of a nice thing to have for a show like this. Just some random assortment of folks you can sort of just call on to be background characters repeatedly. Because it definitely gives a vibe that this crew is these people, and you might not ever hear from them, but it is, they are there and making up part of the verisimilitude, which I can never pronounce properly, of the experience. Which would become more important in Voyager, but they still had to change out people occasionally.
Yeah.
So,
but still just nice. It's like you get to recognize the same background actors. And then when they bring people back for the movies, it's like, oh, they stayed through the whole thing. That's fun.
Yeah.
So, story. That's everybody. Now we have stories.
Wait, before we go to the story, there's one other important thing that this episode inaugurates.
Yeah.
Jonathan Frakes.
Oh, yeah.
He's directing. This is his first time directing.
I forgot this was his first directing gig.
Yeah, and this is like the first time any Star Trek actor got to direct an episode, and so there's kind of a reason he's not in much of it.
Now it's a tradition.
Yes. So some actors get more options on that than others.
Yeah, that's Voyager.
Yeah. Poor Harry Kim. Anyway.
So, the Enterprise currently is charting an asteroid field because it's a boring background thing to do, and this episode is not about asteroids and space stuff, it's about allegories for human rights.
So what better way to set up the situation than to say that we're doing something kind of boring, so we can, liven up life.
Data's called Geordi, Troy, and Wesley for some reason, I guess because they needed to get Will Wheaton his paycheck for this show. They've been called to his lab, where he has been sequestering himself for ages. He's even a little bit upset that they arrive a couple of seconds early and slams the door in their faces.
Yep. It's like, sorry, you're early. Don't mind this severed limb I'm holding here.
He finally introduces them to a new functioning android that he's named Lal, and he calls his child.
Oh my. This strange contraption, this being, this entity is Data's creation. So, Data, you have entered the I can't pronounce that word right now, of literature and become our future Frankenstein.
Yes, annals.
Annals.
Verisimilitude.
Yeah, verisimilitude. Gosh.
The annals of verisimilitude.
I can say Echeveria, but,
It's fine. You can pull out physics words that I definitely can't say. Yeah.
Quantum hydrodynamics.
Today explains that he began programming a new positronic brain at a cybernetics conference. My God, now I can't talk suddenly. You should be careful. Don't make fun of people for mispronouncing, because the very next sentence.
Could be gobbledygook.
They had a new thing at the conference that made him think he could successfully clone his own positronic matrix and program another.
So, Data, you can build yourself a backup.
So Picard is upset that Data did not inform him of his experiment, but then Data says, I didn't see anybody else on the ship consulting you when they engaged in procreation.
Yeah, but maybe Picard wants them to.
Yeah. I mean, it's very annoying when people suddenly, have kids on the ship.
Yeah, Picard does have a weird issue with kids still at this point. It's slowly mellowing out on that front, but it's still sort of a
So Picard tries to explain that creating an entirely new race of androids would have ramifications, but Data's still just talking about parenthood. Wants to see the explorations of bringing a new life into the world, etc., and has read a lot of books about parenting from various cultures.
Some of the suggestions are in fact terrible, though.
Yeah, it's another one of those things where it's been like 300 plus years and we have not advanced our ideas on early childhood past like Freud for some reason.
Yeah. Maybe that's part of the divergence with the Star Trek timeline compared to ours, that certain things just stopped developing, and so we could have more spaceships instead.
So Data feels it's imperative for him to create another being like himself, because until now he was the last of his kind. So now he can carry himself on in some way.
Yeah, so you can reproduce yourself as many times as you need to feel that there's going to be some part of you that lasts forever.
So now, because Lal is very mannequin-y right now, they take them to choose a gender and appearance because, they need to do that, because you have to have a gender in this world. It's imperative.
As I said, we've stopped developing certain things in the Star Trek timeline, and it's really awkward when you look at it that, they don't have anybody who's trans in the future, apparently, so...
So there's some weird implications in here, one of which is apparently that Lal can choose an appearance that they keep forever and never ever can alter for some reason.
Yeah, that's kind of weird too. Data does a couple of times experiment with altering his appearance, like that time he gave himself a beard. So Lal, you're not allowed.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Maybe they only get to change their skin so many times before they fall apart. Anyway, yeah, it's a big decision that will affect everything in their life. Troy joins them, but falls asleep when she finds out that there are actually several thousand options.
Yes. It's like, I'm going to take a nap. I'm just going to sit down in the corner of the holodeck. Before this, I do want to point out the brief exchange where Lal looks over to Troy and, is like, I want your, appearance. And Data's like, no, please.
But I love it because it's not like that would be inappropriate or that's weird. It's just like, no, that would be confusing.
Mm-hmm. I just can't help but think that, maybe Data has some ulterior motive there. Like, no, I don't want Riker hitting on my kid.
So she gets woken up to see the final four. She's just sort of slumped over in the corner of the holodeck, which seems a bit rude. They couldn't get her a chair or bed or anything.
I don't know, let her just leave.
They create a little holographic bedroom in the corner. You're in the holodeck.
Yeah, you could program the holodeck to generate a holodeck and have one of the panels be a secret doorway into a room so you don't have to think about it. And then, you get to hang out in your holodeck doing the holodeck things while there's a secret, non-holodeck room being generated in the holodeck.
Yeah. They really don't use this technology as creatively as they should.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is someone should give me a holodeck so I can do all sorts of crazy, zany things with it.
I mean, if we had holodecks now, they'd just be used for Elon Musk to sell dumb-looking cars.
Well, I wouldn't tell him about it for one, and second, I'll trap him in the holodeck. If I have a spare one, of course, and so he'll never bother anyone again because he thinks he's living his life in this world that caters to his every whim, and so no more destruction caused by him and any other weirdo friends of his we shove in there.
That'd be a great solution to these issues. So the final four options, I'm going to nail down two. Andorian female, who is very, very green for some reason.
Yeah, and it's weirdly poofy hair, way more than, any other Andorian ever has.
Well, it's what they didn't say is it's just based on an Andorian hair metal band.
That is true. These might not be necessarily, typical specimens of their species. So,
a human male, who's just the guy. A human female, also fairly normal looking, and a Klingon male.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of wish she would have picked the Klingon male here.
Yeah, it would have been more interesting.
Worf not knowing what's going on is like, there's a Klingon on board. Why was I not informed? I was going to want to go hang out with them. Because it'd be awkward? Why would it be awkward? This Klingon, well, it's my child. Data, when did you get with a Klingon?
So Lal, of course, chooses humanoid female. There's some weird ways you could interpret this. I don't even know where to start right now.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about some of the things later.
Yeah, you had some liberation about your gender identity, Lal, but we're now locking you in.
So Data now begins introducing the now human-appearing Lal to life aboard the ship, like paintings and chairs and how to swallow. Mm-hmm. There's a very well-done montage of teaching her things like blinking and, actually chewing your food.
Yeah, Data, is supposed to have been programmed with all sorts of, heuristics algorithms to let him sort of just do certain things without really having to try. But I guess those weren't copied over at this point, and so learning them manually is what she does.
So in the lab, Data's transferring his positronic patterns to Lal so that she can learn more and more from his experiences in little blocks that then get integrated into her brain. Wesley suggests that she might be able to learn from going to school and interacting with other entities basically her own age, because socialization.
Wesley, you do realize that Lal's like a week old by this point, right?
Yeah, they don't have kindergartens in this ship.
Infants going to kindergarten at a week old?
Maybe. They teach them calculus when they're 10, so...
True. I could teach a 10-year-old calculus if I had the opportunity, but,
So Data's slightly resistant to the idea of going to school, but Lal wakes up and is in the endless question phase of development. So Data goes, yeah, you're going to school now. You are annoying.
I need some me time, so I'm going to drop you off, and I'll pick you up in 8 hours.
So Picard gets a call from an admiral who's in charge of some sort of unspecified research, who believes that Lal is too large of a breakthrough to be kept aboard a random starship.
So wait a moment. So we find out later that Data keeps in contact with the one dude from Measure of a Man. Mm-hmm. And so maybe that guy was like, hey, Admiral, I want you to go pick up an android for me. Dun, dun, dun.
So Picard basically goes, you're breaking up a family. And the Admiral goes, androids, robots.
What do you mean, family?
Yeah.
All robots are the same to me. Well, racist.
It's like, how many episodes do we need debating whether or not Data gets the full rights of a human? Like 5?
Something like that. Heck, there's at least one Voyager episode that's kind of in the same genre. So,
So at school, things are not going well for Lal because the children are being weird. And yes, I see this as realistic for the way that young children act. But this is space, and you would hope that a teacher who has to teach a group of random fucking aliens might be better at telling the kids how to accept weirdness.
Yeah. It's like, some of your friends have antennae, some of them, are hyper-aggressive, and other ones are, likes to hum mathematical sequences for no reason. So, you get kids can deal with this, right?
Like, of all the shit that these kids must have seen so far, like, a fully developed humanoid child is barely in the top 10. Mm-hmm. So
these kids, they need to chill.
They do have a kind of fun little thing that we should all cultivate, where Lal decides she's very funny because the children wouldn't stop laughing at her.
Well, you are a bit funny, Lal, but not in the way you think.
So Data explains the concept of mockery, and now she's different than other people, and she doesn't like that. So they get to have some nice things about, like, so if we're different, then why are we trying to do anything? And Data gets to talk about his life philosophy and improving oneself, etc.
Mm-hmm. Which is, very Roddenberry Starfleet Federation, sort of ideals there. So, good job, Data.
So Data consults with Dr. Crusher as the ship's apparently only successful parent.
All the other kids on the ship are jerk faces, and Wesley's not a jerk face to me, so obviously you're the only good one here.
Wesley's a little genius, and every other kid is an asshole, so...
Clearly, you know what you're doing.
She basically says that you need to give advice because you're the one who's gone through the same thing. So, let your kids learn from your own experience, etc., etc.
Surely, Data, at some point, somebody mocked you and made fun of you in some way because of your unusual behavior.
She just says that the most important thing with kids is to give them love and attention. And Data goes, I'm incapable of giving love and lead. And she goes, oh, I don't believe that for a second.
If even there's probably a functional equivalent for androids, you could say, that, even if you don't feel love, you are still acting in such a way that you are showing that you care for them and want them to do their best. And, that's kind of the same genre.
Yeah,
really.
We're getting sort of emotional Turing tests here.
Mm-hmm.
So Admiral Asshole calls in the middle of the night, doesn't even give an excuse because, they're in space and they're on standardized time. They're all on space time.
Space time! Not to confuse with space-time continuum.
He also decided that he's going to come to the Enterprise to make a final decision about whether or not he's going to take Lal away.
Yeah, this is a little awkward. You're just going to show up and you are the one who is now in charge of this for some reason?
Yeah.
What's going on?
So Data decides that the best way for Lal to learn about human behavior is going to be to work with Guinan and 10 Forward, where she gets to see a bunch of people interacting, etc. She gets hired immediately because it's the future and nobody actually needs jobs. So who the hell would ever want to work as a waiter?
If you want to, get to know people on the ship, that might be a great way to do it. And ideally, you don't have jerk-face customers causing problems that you have to deal with because it's the future and everyone's supposed to be nice. So that might actually be a calling for some. It's like, I want to interact with people. And so I am going to interact with them in this particular environment because it's available.
Yeah, in the future, no one can be an asshole at your job because, you aren't getting paid for this.
Yeah. And everyone knows that if you're mean to the people serving you here, they might just leave and never come back. And, no matter how much you yell and complain, everyone just can be like, shrug, you're the problem here. So
during this conversation, Lal uses a contraction, which Data supposedly doesn't. Supposedly.
He does sometimes, and just like, come on.
I know, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, yay, she's exceeding his abilities, like kids should. Good job.
Yeah, I think the contraction thing for Data might just be like Dr. Soong was like, I'm just going to make him some quirks here so people know he's a robot, even though he looks different than the humans I'm hanging out with.
Yeah, I need him to be overly formal.
Yeah, a verbal tick to keep him formal all the time.
So after this, Picard informs Data about how the Admiral's coming to evaluate Lal and possibly want to relocate her. Data's understandably kind of upset, but in an android sort of way. As I wonder how the Admiral would feel if Ike showed up and started questioning his parenting.
Yeah. So, Admiral, how about this? You and Data exchange kids.
Yeah, that seems very fair. So, back in 10 Forward, Guinan's explaining human behavior to Lal, specifically flirting, because they're watching two crew members flirt and kiss, and then leave to do things that her father will just have to explain to her later.
Mm-hmm.
Then Riker returns from vacation, and he sees Lal, and Lal says hi, and immediately drags him physically across the bar and starts kissing him.
So remember, Lal, being an android has, robot arms and all that, and they're super powerful, so she could effectively, juggle Riker if she wanted to, and so, he's definitely not, able to resist this in the fiction of the piece. So,
yeah.
So of course, as the director, he could, decides like, nah, we're not going to do this.
So Data walks in, and Riker runs away from this situation very quickly.
Because remember what I said, about Data maybe having ulterior motives, not wanting, Riker to be flirting with his kid. Yeah, apparently happened anyway.
I had to worry about it the other way.
Yeah.
So Data and Lal have a nice talk about working to better yourself and how it's a reward in itself, even if you never achieve your grander goal, etc. And then they hold hands and have a nice android family moment right before the Admiral arrives, having already made his decision that he's going to be taking Lal away.
Well, I guess on one side, Data probably used a lot of Federation materials to construct LOL, so they might have a co-parenting situation going on here. But on the other hand, LOL can be like, self-deterministic too. So, yeah.
So Picard decides that they're going to have a meeting regardless, because the Admiral's ignoring the rights that he instilled personally.
Totally him. It wasn't a weird, a trial thing just kind of tossed together because they were lacking in personnel.
So they take the Admiral to the lab to see Data, who explains the process of the minor differences in him and Lul and how he's making things, but she can use contractions, etc. The Admiral goes, "Oh my god, there's an aberration. We need to do something about that. Sounds like this guy's not being good enough because he lets his kid use contractions."
Yes. I'm going to use anything I can in order to extract this child here and then bring her with me. Yes, and if it wasn't contractions, her skin's too pink. She walks funny. She keeps, having her arms kind of out like this. These are aberrations that must be taken care of, and we can do that at the Science Academy Space Station.
So they take him to Lul. He's infuriated that she's wasting her time at a bar and thinks she's going to pick up all kinds of terrible behavior at this terrible place. Then Guidance slides up and goes, "Oh, really?
Really?
Think I don't keep a nice place?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is not a dive. This is 10 forward. It's a classy place.
So they take Lul to the observation lounge. The Admiral tries to tell her how great it would be to live on a space station without Data, and she does not agree. And she uses her android logic to get him at a standstill. He's like, "There's only so much you can learn here. That's right. So I should learn everything I can here and then leave." It's like,
That's maybe a good point there. Drat, foiled again.
And Picard finally gets around to saying, like, "Hey, where do you want to be?" She says that she wants to stay, so should be case closed.
Yeah.
It's not, but it should be.
So you're a independent being. You are alive. You have the decision to say, "No, I don't want to be whisked away to some other space station." So come on, Admiral. This should be an open and shut case right here. Come on.
So Lul is visibly upset, wanders into Troy's quarters because she's scared, like actually really scared. Like full-on emotions are happening and she doesn't know what to do.
Uh-oh. Data, you might want to help out here.
Now Data's still being bothered by the Admiral because he can't be with people.
Admiral.
So Admiral's interviewing Data, and he can't convince him that Lul would be better off without him. He's like, "You should tell her that she'd be better off at the space station." As well, I'm not going to lie to her.
Yeah. So you're trying to end run around her decision here. Stop it.
So he just orders Data to tell Lul to leave, and Data, following orders, starts to go. Data orders him not to go. And now they're having a Admiral-Captain standoff.
Mm-hmm. Which, in the formal rank hierarchy, the Admiral wins, but, Picard's Data's commanding officer, so there's some, local control here that Data needs to pay attention to.
Also, in naval tradition, the captain outranks anybody on his own ship.
Yeah.
Picard says that he is not going to stand by and let someone be ordered to give up their child to the state. They don't have to actually resolve this because Troy calls and says that Lul's dying.
So, maybe we should set aside that whole custody battle and deal with this right now.
So her emotions are apparently a byproduct of a cascade failure. The Admiral asks if he can help, and they both go in to do something about the problem. Later, the Admiral leaves, saying that there was nothing that they could do. But by the end, Data was trying to save her so fast that he couldn't even see his hands moving.
Data's super speed activated, at least once before, and he can go pretty fast.
So now the Admiral knows that Data loved his kid because he was upset about her dying. It's like, this guy's such an ass.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you're so in the wrong here, and it's like ridiculously levels of stop trying to be helpful because you're just going to make it worse kind of levels at this point, I think.
So Data and Lul have just enough time to say goodbye. Crew's sad. Data says that he couldn't let her be lost, so he downloaded all of her memories back into his brain. No one knows what to do with this, so they just sort of quietly move on.
Yes. So I guess Data's now partially Lul?
Yeah. Lul's memories and experiences, etc.
But I guess we also learned that Data had some experiences from colonists plopped into his head as well. So, sort of like a ROM insert or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The memory soup.
Yes.
His entire personality is just a bunch of memory soup.
Well, he seems to be doing well with it, so good on him.
So I just, I really, really, really did not want to have to talk about the history of the state stealing children.
But here we are.
Yeah. So instead, like, you can talk about the state stealing children if you want. I found other things to talk about.
Well, let's go with the other things here, because, there's at least one other child custody battle episode of Star Trek that's going to pop up here, I think, next season.
Because they just can't stop doing that.
Yeah. So what do you got? What do you got?
Right. Well, this one's kind of interesting because I, for some reason, wasn't finding a ton of people talking about the very heavy trans-theming of this episode.
Yep.
Which everyone's going to focus on LOL. And there is a lot of stuff there because it's kind of really interesting and not something that you really see, even though it's something that you could in science fiction, to have an X to F transition.
Yes.
This LOL starts as a undifferentiated non-binary humanoid with no sex or gender.
Yes, the weirdly sculpted mannequin form.
And then gets to pick what she wants to be later. So you have a fully androgynous to female transition, which just doesn't happen. Even if you account for intersex people, like, no one is born so completely and utterly androgynous that they just get to pick whatever.
Indeed. Might make the world weirdly easier if that was like a thing, but alas, it is not.
Editor's note: while this episode does focus largely on LOL's completely unsexed appearance, in the real world it would be much more correct to say that when someone is born they are assigned a sex at birth, which would never be non-binary, regardless of them being intersex or not, or how they appear. They would always be assigned either male or female. Therefore, it would be impossible in the real world to achieve a non-binary to binary transition. They don't acknowledge that this is like a choice that someone might make for reasons other than because you have to. No one gave them the option to not choose one of the binaries, which is a bit of an issue. But obviously, she didn't care that much to do that. Seemed pretty happy and didn't really argue it.
Yeah, I would, in sort of the fiction there is a possibility that there were non-binary options made available, but we don't see any of them, so we can't necessarily assume they existed. And for all we know, that even if they did existed, there might have been some subtle discouragement from Data or even Troy for some reason, away from those. It's like, yeah, but folks, have more complications with the non-binary folks here in our Star Trek universe because we're not too accepting here, even though we are because apparently we have this executive producer problem, beyond our existence. So
it is also very interesting to me the way that they explain to LOL why picking a gender is important, in that it is going to color the way that everyone assumes you act and interacts with you, which is one of the primary things that we have here is this ever-evolving mishmash of doing the thing performatively, which creates the thing non-performatively, which reinforces the way that people act around the thing that you have to do performatively.
So, if you stop being, doing the thing performatively, people start acting weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just annoying.
I'm not going to be able to explain Judith Butler, so go read Gender Trouble if you want to know more about the... it's a performance that's reinforcing a real thing that everyone is simultaneously performing and inventing at any given time. That's probably the best I can summarize. I've read entire books that are trying to summarize Judith Butler.
So I guess, we're being, LOL's being led on a path where it's like, yes, you are going to be caught up in this performative aspect of existing here. And, you just have to deal with it, So go along.
I do think there's a weird implication in the you wouldn't be able to change later. Like, Data says that he made LOL intentionally androgynous and species androgynous. I don't know what the word for that would be.
Non-genomed.
There you go.
Like it all.
Yeah.
We've gone beyond being uncertain about our the chromosomes that all the transphobes are upset about constantly. We have no genome now. Mwahaha.
In order so that she can pick her own appearance later. But there is some sort of implication about how you wouldn't be able to change after that, which means, is there also the implication that if he had just said, I'm going to make you look like a human male, that she wouldn't have been able to change that later?
Yeah, there's some decisions here that Data is offering up, but it's putting it's still kind of boxing her in.
Because I think there's something else that's also sort of non-obvious that doesn't get talked about. And it's an interesting thing with Data, and it kind of ties into whether or not he could change his appearance if he wanted to. Because in the context of this story, Data is essentially a trans father.
Yep.
Because he is a male who has had a kid that is completely, like, as far as the fiction of the thing is concerned, biologically his kid that he gave birth to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the birthing process just involved a lot more handwork than usual.
Yeah, it's a different way of giving birth because species stuff, androids. But Data is still a male father who gave birth to his own kid, single father style in this one.
Indeed.
Which is definitely something that's happened a lot, something we don't want to come to terms with because transphobia, but this is a definite thing. It does happen. It's around.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget the exact term for it, but even in the wilds of nature, there are species that reproduce asexually. Sometimes, like, there's those one kinds of lizards that are all female, and they just basically pulp out an egg that's already comes pre-fertilized, and so it's like, we're just kind of doing our thing here, and we are in terms of people that try to enforce this is what the male does, this is what the female does. They're like, we're not going to care about that because we're just lizards doing our thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should know that. There we go. Parthenogenesis.
There we go. So, Data, keep doing that.
Yeah.
It's cool.
So you could consider this to be parthenogenesis, but since this is supposed to be a, allegory for humans, this is basically a trans male birth who then somehow has a non-binary kid who chooses to transition to female.
Yep. So, Lol, you might be very young this entire episode, but you're living your best life and picking what you want to, how you want to live going forward, and more power to you.
And a lot of this episode is centered around: do you respect Data as a father, which is something that we get into because you're supposed to have a natural mother figure, which we consider to be more important for a person's upbringing. And we get very, very confused and don't like it when a man gives birth to their own kid, because then we get really weird about where the mothering is supposed to come from and whether or not you can actually raise a kid well as a person who does not fit within the formal confines of society. I'm not going to make a direct comparison between the way that trans and non-binary people are treated as a minority and the way that we've had racism and non-white people treated as minorities, which is a lot more what this episode is sort of leaning towards, with the state taking control of people's children because they don't believe them to be viable families. But I do think that there's a definite thing to be said here for the way that the state is not seeing Data as a viable parent, partially because they do not recognize the way that he gave birth to his kid as a viable family connection.
Indeed. No, you're not a parent here. You've constructed the law here. So we can't see you as a parent. It's just impossible here. Now give her to us.
Up to and including the idea that one needs to ask permission in order to have your own damn kid.
Yeah. and I do appreciate that Picard kind of backs away from this position, though he does start there. It's like, wait a moment, maybe I am being the asshole here.
Which, he does. He gets to realize it quickly because Picard's the smart one in this universe.
Yes. I guess there is, also in society, independent of trans parents, of skepticism of single fathers as well. That may be a factor in, though maybe not as much. That there is sort of a weird default where if say there's the mother's not in the picture for some reason, they are the ones that have a full-time job while the father does not. Being the one example, or she's passed away, or there's a divorce, and this is the parent that has the kid at the time here, possibly full-time, possibly not. And it's like, I want to take my son or daughter to the playground, and well, there's now other parents here, and all the mothers that are doing the more traditional structure here are looking at this father with their kid skeptically, because like, why is this guy here? This is a woman's only place, right? Obviously, he's here to kidnap one of the children.
Yeah, this all ties into itself, because we do have a lot of patriarchal notions about women as the caregivers and the ones that are supposed to take care of the children, which is bad for fathers who want to spend any time with their kids. It's also bad for women who maybe don't want to necessarily be the primary caregivers of children in their relationship or families, because we've set up society in such a way that even if a man wants to do more child caring, it's more difficult because of things like the gender wage gap and who's allowed to make money, or who's allowed to, as you said, go to places with children without being suspect.
Yes.
And then, of course, all of those things that cis men face are also hit by trans men who might have had a kid, because they're seen as the father to the child, and then have all of the same issues of what's this man doing around with this kid, or why doesn't this kid have a woman in their life?
And and then at some point, it's like the people that are asking these absurd questions realize, oh, this person's trans. I'm going to panic even more, because that tends to come with the same sort of bigotry.
Well, you have the great thing for transmasculine people of getting to either be a failed woman who then is not deserving of things like nurturing and being able to raise their own children, or maybe will mess up their kids, etc., or being a failed man who, one, is a man and so can't adequately take care of children, but also will probably mess them up as either a failed man or a gay man or whatever it is we're going to pick. There's a pretty well-known thing in like trans discussions of you are either a failed woman or a failed man, depending on which kind of bigotry someone wants to throw at you at the time.
Indeed.
And that goes for basically all trans people. We're talking specifically about trans masks because of the pregnancy aspect of this whole discussion, but this happens to trans femmes as well. If you are either not a good enough woman, if I want to be shitty to you in that patriarchal way, or you're a shitty gay man if I want to be bad to you in that kind of way. It's just whichever kind of bigotry they want to throw at you at the time.
Yeah, and so I guess there's a room for all different types of bigotries here. Everyone can pile on and show off your hate. Yeah, it kind of sucks, guys.
Because there's never even a thought or discussion of if Data can be a good dad by the Admiral. The Admiral's basically just like, well, I can just take this kid away. The way that this kid was birthed doesn't fit into my general preconceptions of how family works, so this kid has no rights or expectations.
And I'm going to generate a bunch of excuses to try to justify it in a very flimsy manner, and just hand her over, okay? Yeah, so, Admiral, you suck.
You also have this interesting thing on the Admiral as the outsider, which happens a lot in these kinds of things. Because who knows? Even Picard demonstrates. Everybody on the ship demonstrates that they are suddenly taken aback by the fact that Data has a kid. They don't know what to think about it, but they have a personal relationship with this person on an individual level. So their personal relationship is going to override their societal biases. But the Admiral gets to come in as a representation of those general societal biases as someone who doesn't have a personal relationship. And as shitty as it is, that his kid has to die in order for him to demonstrate that he actually cares about her to the Admiral. You do have that kind of same story arc with him, where the more he develops a personal relationship with Data, the less he sees the general state way of looking at it as the correct one.
Would be nice to have him, put that state view aside earlier, though.
Yeah, this is sort of the this is the political coming out theory of queer liberation that Harvey Milk was pushing for. The let everyone know that you actually do have a personal stake in this problem because you know people.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons, but that's the general theory.
That's, if you are existing in society and people know who you are, they interact with who you are and what you're all about, then they will be less prone to making weird assumptions about you because, you are existing and being your best self, and there's a reality they can compare things to.
Well, it's just simply more difficult to have a societal bias against someone that you have a personal relationship with. Because you then, instead of, oh, all of this group is bad and they're doing all of these things, you go like, well, I don't feel that way about my friend or my cousin or my kid.
So the straw man no longer works on you.
Yeah, because you don't have a straw man. You have a personal connection with somebody.
Indeed. So, for those who have come out, more power to you.
But also stop guilting people who aren't in a good position to do that.
Yeah, there are folks that I've met over the course of my life who, were gay or trans, ace, bi, pan, whatever, and they're, in weird, awkward situations where it's like, yeah, they, have, maybe maybe they're on that, some sort of physical disability or mental disability that makes them dependent on people that have strong, biases against who they are, what they are. And it's like, well, I could come out, but that might mean I end up on the street and then die. So, yeah, this is maybe not a good thing for me. But there are folks out there that, it is not ideal to be coming out. So, yeah. So use your best judgment, folks. You know your life better than us.
That's basically all my things. Because, you can read this episode interestingly. It doesn't have anything particular to say about a thing that it didn't intend to say.
So I guess we should very briefly, at the very least, mention that in sort of a similar genre to the things we've talked about is the racial aspect, of course, that, there's, plenty of instances where, even in the good old US of A, where it's like, oh, yes, we must rescue the children of these Native Americans or these African Americans or whomever, the not sufficiently white children, because we don't trust their parents to be able to treat, raise them right for whatever reason. And pretty much universally, that has gone poorly for the children, because you're now basically abducting them, taking them away from their families, putting them in, isolation with a, some sort of educational boarding school situation. Well, you've done this, and, well, the get-go, this is going to be destroying their connection to, the people that they have the strongest familiar connection with, which is, I think one of those things that is cited as a sign of genocide. So that sucks, because you're effectively destroying the culture of these children for their next generation. But also, you now have done this, and, well, success, you've done the thing, you have saved the day, and now oversight is gonna vanish because you've done the thing and everything's a-okay. And so suddenly a bunch of the children vanish because, they were beaten to death or starved or whatever. And, there's, last few years have been various instances, especially out of Canada, where the native, focus schools were revealing, like, yeah, we kind of have a mass grave situation over here. Yeah, so that's all terrible.
I think the main thing to remember with that is that despite the post-fact justifications that it was some sort of like missionary work or saving children or etc., all of those things were set up with the explicit aim of annihilating native cultures.
Mm-hmm. I guess. So we're going to educate them in the white people society culture here, and so they don't have to think about any of that thing that that is different than what we are. So, yes.
Which is one of the reasons that so many native languages are going extinct, and we think of these cultures as gone.
Yeah, it's just all nonsense being generated to justify something horrible. So, yeah, future people don't do that, please. Today, people don't do that either, actually.
Yeah, I mean, we still have some of this stuff around, and we have they instituted some laws in various places to try to prevent that. I don't know, I've heard some things that they are possibly pushing back on some of those in some weird ways that don't look good.
Yeah, it seems this weird trend of we try to make things better. There's a bunch of people like, no, we actually like to make things horrible for people, and we're going to fight that tooth and nail because, we're scared of the people speaking different languages.
Yeah. Well, either you just like internalized all of the white supremacist rhetoric and actually believe you're doing a good thing, or if you took a minute to admit that all of this stuff was bad, you'd have to think about how bad it actually was.
Mm-hmm. And thinking that, bad things have happened, well, that makes our children depressed.
Yeah. Isn't that literally one of the things that they were saying for why we shouldn't teach this in schools, is it makes the white children sad?
Yeah. Oh, man. Florida sucks. As well as other places, but it's one of the higher profile locales where they're like, yeah, we got to protect the children from feeling bad about, being white, because lots of white people did horrible things in the past and sometimes still doing it. So we can't talk about any of that. So we don't have much left to talk about in terms of history now. We'll do more math.
Yeah, that's probably why my sociology class was mostly Egypt.
Yeah. So, ancient Egypt, they built some pyramids. Pyramids are mathematical. Let's talk about the math of the pyramids. Oh, man. So, that's, we could probably dig a whole lot into that, but we're a little low on time here.
And like you said, there's other episodes for that one, because people love doing that.
Mm-hmm. Or it would be nice if people would stop doing it, though.
Yeah.
Like the horrible thing that's being talked about here. Anyway, that's all I got.
Yeah. So since we've depressed everyone, then it's time for our normal, supposed to be palate cleanser. The Galaxy's favorite game show! Woo!
Hey everybody, welcome to the Galaxy's favorite game show. Our contestants have been racking up some points here today, it looks like, and there's some more androids hanging out here in our studio audience here, and wow, Kepin, are you an android?
Who can say?
All right. So we might all be androids secretly. In fact, the first prize is the Everybody Loves Robots prize, which goes to Lau because despite her complications, everyone does end up loving her in the end. Just a matter of if they love her as a person or as hardware to dissect and, use for research purposes. Anyway, what does Lau win, Gepwin?
She wins a better school district. So I don't know how the stuff on this ship is organized. We only ever see one school full of very, very tiny children, but there's got to be another place for the slightly older kids who are less racist.
Hopefully. Maybe there's a school for the saucer section and a school for the drive section. And the older kids go to the drive section and because it's closer to engineering and they can go look at the reactor, maybe? Maybe. Anyway, our next prize is the hard drive brain prize, which goes to Data, because Data figures out how to use his own brain as a hard drive effectively, so he can speed run the basics of cybernetic construction. What does Data win, Gepwin?
All right, Data just needs to stop that. Data wins a stop that. He's tried to download his brain into several things. Other people have downloaded his brain into things. Downloading anyone's brain into anything in all of Star Trek has never turned out well.
Somebody even downloaded themselves into Data previously. So, Data, you should really know better at this point.
And then it becomes a really stupid plot point in Star Trek Picard. So, yeah, let's just nip that in the bud now.
Our final prize is the Child Custody Battle Arena prize, which goes to Admiral Halftel and Data, because in the future, child custody determination is weirdly complicated, especially if you're not human. What do they win, Gepwin?
Well, you get 2 prizes. Data wins, never having to have heard about this, because Admiral Halftel won a brief trip out an airlock.
So, it's probably a good thing we don't ever see him again. Bye, Admiral. It's been not a pleasure. That's all I got this weekend, Gepwin. Feel free to take us away, or maybe clone my brain here.
Yes.
I don't know.
Thank you all for downloading your brains into this thing we call the Galaxy's Favorite Game Show. Woo! So now we get to talk about Fathers more.
Yeah, we got just a quick run of some classic episodes that all have ties into things that happen later. Just right in a row here. Because, yesterday's Enterprise, The Offspring, and now the one that's coming up next time.
Yeah, next is Sins of the Father. Because, Data was a father in this one, but probably unsinful. Pretty unsinful in general.
What would make up a robotic sin?
I don't know. Futurama? They've got that whole robot church.
There is the Silicon Heaven and Red Dwarf as well, and... I don't remember what the general concepts are other than, don't be, a murder bot. Anyway.
So Sins of the Father is the Klingon episode because it's written by the Klingon dude who did all the Klingon stuff and made up all the Klingon things. And it's the first time we see all the Klingon things, and the Klingon things just don't change until we get to Discovery, and they make some very questionable Klingon-based decisions.
Yes, so we got some more Klingonness here with the Klingons in the future and the Klingons of the TNG are doing their Klingon thing.
Yeah, we get to see the High Council and some internal politics that are mostly made up but are still kind of interesting. It's always funny to me when they do deep political drama on these kinds of shows where it's like, we are so obviously making this up as we go along.
So, I in some ways, it is kind of impressive how much they kept things semi-consistent throughout, even though a lot of it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Just don't pay attention to the details. Don't think about how this governmental system would function for more than 10 seconds, because it wouldn't.
Indeed. I guess to a certain degree, I kind of have my own idea of how the Klingon Empire sort of operates as a semi-feudal mishmash of institutions, and there's the sort of almost a semi-de facto caste system going on with the warriors are everyone who's slightly aggressive goes off and does that while everyone else actually runs society. And so I guess we got the High Council in, but they don't super care about the random institutions on each individual planet that keep the water running. For instance, they're more of a if somebody who's in charge of the territory where the water plant is shuts off the water, we have to bring him before the High Council, and he might get stabbed. So
you just need a little bit of justification. Everyone's like, "Oh, the entire society is warriors," but all you need is a couple of lines of running the water treatment plant means that the warriors do not get diarrhea. What an honor!
Yes. There is a little bit of that at times, like in what you call it, Enterprise. There we go. We meet a Klingon doctor who is like, I didn't necessarily feel like murdering people, though. This plague I accidentally created killed more people than I would have as a warrior. But anyway, it's going to be a great honor to solve this problem I created, and that's good enough, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, the next episode features everyone's fan favorite tall guy, Tony Todd.
Yeah, who we've talked about before, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
I love Tony Todd. He's great.
Yes. And so he'll be hanging out. He'll be thinking about killing Riker. The usual stuff.
It's all the way it happens. I'm realizing as I pull up the Wikipedia so I can remember the details of these things. And I don't know why. This is the first time I've ever noticed how Kronos is actually spelled.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. Why is the Klingon homeworld spelled like this?
Well, if you spell it Kronos, like, Kronos, the Greek Titan, people get confused.
I mean, people are already going to be confused. There's a random apostrophe and a capital S for some reason.
And, Klingons just sort of do that in their spelling.
Yeah,
makes
Klingons
them
love apostrophes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like stabbing the word.
In my constructed language, there is no apostrophes, generally. Though there are some marks that kind of look like them, but they're like part of a larger symbol.
Not using gut stops makes you unique in any sci-fi language.
There is maybe a gut fast forward. Where it's like, at the beginning of this syllable, you have to say it a little bit more emphasis, faster even, but it kind of slows down later. So it's like, it's like, hi goes to hi. Anyway.
The next time we get to make fun of all the cool Klingon names and talk about why everything on the Klingon Empire is political assassinations.
And we have more names that, kind of sound like Kalis, but aren't quite there.
Yeah. I just love the implication that, the Klingon Empire is on the verge of falling apart constantly. They just can't function as a society. Their entire political system is basically run by randomly assassinating people, but no one else can do anything about it because they, for some reason, just have the de facto strongest military in the galaxy.
The byproduct of just having so many random people become warriors. It's like, well, we just keep building ships and we just keep filling them up.
As we saw last episode, even the Federation would just definitely lose a war with the Klingons. So they get to go over there and do whatever weird shit they want as long as they stay over there.
Yep. And if we have problems with Romulans at some point in the future, maybe we'll team up.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, next time we get Worf backstory and family stuff and drama and Klingon drama and the whole space opera stuff. The Klingons are basically like the Federation is doing Star Trek over here and the Klingons are doing Dune over there.
Yeah. The various houses of the Landstrad, the Klingon High Council are at war again. They're pretty spicy about it. Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, burnt replicated bird meat. You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.